You won't believe what just happened to one of gospel's most respected voices. At 49, Pastor Charles Jenkins, a man whose sermons have inspired millions, was suddenly rushed to the ICU, and it all came right after his wife spoke out, revealing a truth that has left the faith community in shock. What she said tears through the facade of perfection and exposes a side of his life no one expected. Tonight, we uncover the hidden story behind the headlines, the moments that led up to this shocking emergency, and the secrets that many hoped would never see the light of day. Stay with me, because what comes next changes everything. When a figure like Pastor Charles Jenkins faces a life-altering moment, the world notices. But what most people don't realize is the story behind the headlines. For years, Pastor Jenkins has been celebrated as a pillar of faith, guiding his congregation through triumphs and trials alike. But behind the sermons and smiling photos lies a series of events that few have seen. It all started quietly, with subtle signs that something was off. Then, in a shocking turn of events, his wife stepped forward with words that shook even the closest members of their community. What she revealed was more than a personal confession. It was a revelation that forced a man admired for his strength and devotion to confront challenges that no one expected. In this video, we'll dive deep into the timeline of events leading to Pastor Jenkins' sudden ICU rush. You'll discover the hidden pressures, the family struggles, and the private moments that turned public in ways that no one could have anticipated. You won't believe what happened next, and by the end of this story, you'll see a side of Pastor Jenkins that rarely makes it into the headlines. But what truly led to this emergency? The answer lies in the next chapter of this story, one that unfolds with tension, emotion, and secrets that some hoped would never come out. Pastor Charles Jenkins has always been seen as a figure of unwavering faith, a man whose sermons can lift spirits and whose music touches hearts. To the outside world, everything seemed perfect: a loving family, a thriving ministry, and an image of strength that inspired thousands. But behind the cameras and the pulpit, not everything was as it appeared. Those close to him began noticing subtle changes months ago. Friends reported that he was quieter during meetings, more withdrawn after services, and seemed burdened by a weight he couldn't shake. The energy that once radiated from his sermons was still there, but faint, like a lamp flickering under pressure. Even at home, family members whispered about late-night calls, moments of frustration, and signs of stress that he tried desperately to hide. For someone who built his life on faith and hope, admitting vulnerability was not easy. But what was happening was more than ordinary stress. It was a buildup of private pressures, personal challenges, and unspoken tensions that no one, including his congregation, could fully understand. And then came the moment that changed everything. Something his wife revealed would pull back the curtain on years of carefully hidden struggles. It wasn't just a personal confession. It was a revelation with consequences powerful enough to shake even the closest circles of trust. But before we get to that explosive moment, let's rewind and look at the chain of events that led to the ICU rush. The moments that seemed ordinary but were quietly building toward a life-altering emergency. What happened in the weeks leading up to this shock is where the story begins to get unbelievable. For years, the public saw Pastor Charles Jenkins as the embodiment of faith, strength, and guidance. His sermons were powerful, his music inspiring, and his family image seemingly flawless. But behind closed doors, there were whispers of tension, unspoken struggles, and a reality that few were prepared to face. And then, it happened. His wife decided to speak out. What she revealed was nothing short of shocking. In a statement that rippled through social media, church circles, and news outlets alike, she shared deeply personal details about the pressures Pastor Jenkins had been facing. Pressures that had quietly mounted over months and years. She spoke of emotional exhaustion, the relentless weight of expectations, and the personal battles that had been hidden from the public eye. For many, it was a side of a beloved pastor they had never imagined. Her words painted a picture of a man caught between public duty and private struggles. A man who poured his heart into lifting others, even while silently carrying his own burdens. The confession wasn't just about stress. It hinted at personal sacrifices, strained relationships, and moments of vulnerability that made headlines feel almost secondary to the raw, emotional truth. Church members and followers were left stunned. Social media erupted with speculation, support, and shock. Many tried to reconcile the image of the confident, unwavering preacher with the reality of a man now under immense pressure. And as the world watched, the situation escalated, leading to the night when Pastor Jenkins' health took a frightening turn. He was rushed to the ICU. Emergency reports confirmed the severity of his condition, but details remained scarce. Rumors swirled. Was it a physical health crisis caused by stress, an emotional breakdown, or something far more complicated, intertwined with the personal revelations his wife had just made? What happened next would reveal not only the depth of his struggle, but also the resilience, faith, and humanity of a man often placed on a pedestal. And just when everyone thought they had grasped the full story, another twist emerged, one that no one expected. It was late in the evening when news broke that Pastor Charles Jenkins had been rushed to the ICU. For a man whose life had been lived under the public eye, this sudden health crisis sent shockwaves through the gospel community and beyond. Social media lit up almost immediately. Prayers flooded in from followers, friends scrambled to offer support, and news outlets scrambled for answers. But the details were scarce, leaving everyone with more questions than answers. Inside the hospital, the situation was tense. Doctors and nurses moved with urgency, monitoring vital signs and administering care. Sources close to the family confirmed that the stress and emotional strain he had endured in the preceding weeks had contributed to his condition, but the exact cause remained undisclosed. Was it a physical ailment triggered by stress? Was it related to the emotional weight of his wife's recent revelations? Or something more complex? The uncertainty only fueled the anxiety of those who loved him. Meanwhile, the congregation was in shock. Many had seen Pastor Jenkins just days earlier, preaching with the same energy and conviction that had become his trademark. To see him suddenly incapacitated was jarring. Messages poured in. "We're praying for you, Pastor. Stay strong. We are here for you." But beneath the messages of hope, there was an undercurrent of fear. The church had rallied behind a leader who always seemed untouchable, but now the human fragility behind the faith icon was exposed. Even his closest friends admitted they were caught off guard. "I never imagined this," one confidant said. "He's always been the first to support everyone else. To see him like this, it's heartbreaking." And yet, despite the panic, there was also a deep sense of unity. Members of the church and fans around the world began sharing prayers, personal testimonies, and stories of how Pastor Jenkins had changed their lives, reminding everyone that his influence extended far beyond the pulpit. As hours turned into a tense night, family members remained by his side. His wife, who had just spoken out publicly, now faced her own emotional turmoil. She had exposed the private struggles that contributed to this moment, and now she had to reconcile the consequences. Every heartbeat, every update from the doctors was a reminder of how quickly life can shift, even for someone who seems larger than life. And just when it seemed the worst might have passed, a new revelation emerged from inside the ICU, a detail about his health and personal life that had been kept completely private. This revelation not only intensified the drama, but also hinted at challenges that might extend far beyond this immediate crisis. What happened next would not just impact Pastor Jenkins, but the entire community who had watched his life unfold under a microscope. When the world sees a pastor like Charles Jenkins, the image is often of unwavering strength, spiritual guidance, and a life devoted to uplifting others. But the reality behind that public persona is far more complex. The ICU emergency didn't happen in isolation. It was the culmination of years of hidden struggles, pressures, and sacrifices that few outside his inner circle fully understood. Pastor Jenkins has spent decades building a ministry that reaches thousands, balancing sermons, music, travel, and community outreach. To the congregation, he is always present, always encouraging, always composed. But inside, the emotional toll of such responsibilities can be immense. Friends and family revealed that he often carried burdens silently, the weight of congregants' problems, the responsibility of guiding a large church, and the expectations of being a role model in both faith and personal life. Even his home life wasn't untouched by these pressures. His wife, in her public confession, alluded to moments of tension, exhaustion, and emotional strain. She described late nights of prayer and reflection, trying to keep everything together while fearing the fragility of her husband's health. The stress of ministry combined with personal obligations created a pressure cooker environment, a situation where every decision, every word, and every expectation carried enormous weight. Colleagues spoke of sleepless nights, long hours in planning and preparation, and the constant balancing act between public duties and private life. He gives everything to everyone else, one church official said. Sometimes it's easy to forget that he's human too. The ICU incident, then, wasn't just a health scare. It was a wake-up call that even those who appear strongest need support, care, and moments of rest. The story also underscores the hidden reality of life in the spotlight. For pastors and public figures, vulnerability is often seen as weakness. Admitting to struggles, whether emotional, mental, or physical, can feel impossible when everyone expects perfection. And yet, Pastor Jenkins' experience reminds us that behind every sermon, every uplifting song, and every public smile, there may be a story of quiet struggle and resilience that the world rarely sees. As fans and followers processed the shocking news of the ICU rush, many began to reflect on the human side of their spiritual leaders. This moment forced a difficult but important conversation, the acknowledgement that even those who guide others need compassion, understanding, and help when the weight of the world becomes too much. But the story doesn't end with understanding alone. In the days following the ICU incident, new developments emerged. Details that revealed the emotional, spiritual, and relational impact of this crisis on both Pastor Jenkins and his family. These moments were private, raw, and filled with lessons that no headline could ever fully capture. What unfolded next would challenge assumptions, inspire conversations, and leave a lasting mark on everyone watching. After the harrowing ICU emergency, Pastor Charles Jenkins began the slow, careful process of recovery. Doctors emphasized rest, emotional support, and reducing the immense stress that had contributed to his crisis. But recovery wasn't just physical, it was deeply emotional, spiritual, and relational. For a man whose life had been dedicated to serving others, this pause was a stark reminder of the importance of self-care and vulnerability. In the quiet moments of recovery, Pastor Jenkins reflected on the pressures he had carried silently for years. The sermons, the music, the travel, and the constant responsibility of guiding a congregation had all taken a toll. He realized that being a spiritual leader did not make him immune to human fragility, and that asking for help was not a sign of weakness, but an act of courage. The community, meanwhile, rallied around him in unprecedented ways. Messages of love, support, and prayers poured in from all corners. Congregants, fellow pastors, and fans around the world. The outpouring was overwhelming, a testament to the profound impact he had made over decades of ministry. Social media was filled with hashtags, heartfelt posts, and video tributes, reminding everyone of the influence he had on people's lives. Perhaps most poignantly, his relationship with his wife grew stronger amid the crisis. The public confession that had shocked so many became a foundation for deeper understanding, empathy, and unity. Together, they navigated the aftermath, emphasizing honesty, support, and the recognition that even the strongest among us can face moments of vulnerability. For Pastor Jenkins, this chapter of his life offered powerful lessons, not just about health, but about life, faith, and community. It reminded him, and the millions who look up to him, that no one is untouchable, no life is without struggles, and the greatest strength often comes from acknowledging weakness and embracing support. As he slowly returned to his ministry, the story of his ICU rush became more than a headline. It became a symbol of human resilience, the power of faith, and the importance of compassion. The shock of that night and the revelations that followed left an indelible mark, teaching both him and the community lessons that extend far beyond the pulpit. And while this chapter has ended with recovery and reflection, the story remains a powerful reminder. Behind every public figure, every beloved leader, there is a human being navigating challenges, carrying burdens, and striving to find balance in a world that often expects perfection.